Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching Sunday edition here on KTN News. Let's now get into the politics, that is NASA versus Jubilee politics on our segment RealPolitik. Let's start with what happened at the Bukhungu Stadium in Kakamega County yesterday as the National Super Alliance converged there to sell their agenda, officially launching Raila Odinga's presidential bid, making a lot of promises, including a lot of promises in the first 90 days if Raila Odinga is elected into office on the 8th of August. Let's listen in.
It was the second major political rally that the opposition leaders, led by the presidential candidate Raila Odinga, were holding since Raila was cleared by the IEBC to run for the presidency. The rally was at Bukhungu Stadium in Kakamega County, a region perceived to be an opposition stronghold. NASA flag bearer Raila Odinga promised free primary education from primary to secondary immediately after elections if he's declared winner.
Sisi tumesema tukishika namna hii kuanzia Septemba watoto watasoma bure katika shule zote za sekondari. Sio Januari, Septemba mwaka huu. Tamu ya mwisho watoto watalipa karo katika sekondari zetu zote. Sisi tunasema na tunatenda.
Kwa hivyo hawa ndugu zetu wanahitaji kupatiwa adabu na wananchi wa Kenya. Wangapi wako tayari kuwapatia adabu? We can assure them. Sisi tukawapeleka nyumbani, we shall treat them with decorum.
Wewe ndugu yangu, tafadhali, let us change our country and the time is now. Na ni Raila ambaye tumeamua atusaidie kuvuka.
The 5 issues that NASA team promised to address include the high cost of living, corruption, unemployment, failed devolution, and insecurity.
Walisema ati wakishika namna hii gharama ya maisha itarudi chini. Imerudi chini. Bei ya unga iko wapi? Bei ya sukari?
Kuanzia leo, each one of you must be #1 campaigner of Raila and Kalonzo Musyoka.
Kama tuko na ile moyo ya kupeleka baba State House, tafadhalini wananchi wenzangu, tutoke asubuhi na mapema, tuende tupige hiyo kura, tuchunge hiyo kura mpaka tuhakikisha ya kwamba baba amepata hii kura ya kutosha. Kura milioni 10. Hiyo inawezekana.
Wakati unapigia Raila kura, unaheshimu Mkenya mdogo. Wakati unapigia Raila kura, umepigia chama chetu cha NASA ODM.
The opposition leader also launched a Western investment blueprint during the ceremony, insisting that if elected as Kenya's 5th president, his government will have development plans in every sector for this region.
Sisi tunasema na tunatenda. Sio ile tenda ya Ruto, kusema tumetenga, yote ni ahadi ya bure ambayo haina chochote.
That is the National Super Alliance team speaking at the Bukhungu Stadium in Kakamega yesterday. Today they moved to the county of Nandi. Let's now bring in our reporter in the North Rift, Elvis Kosgei, who is in Kapsabet as we speak, where the whole NASA Pentagon is expected to be making their way to continue wooing voters in that part of the country. Elvis, good morning. And how is Kapsabet looking like, and who do we expect there? Yesterday, Isaac Ruto did miss that meeting in Kakamega. Do you expect Isaac Ruto to be there today?
Yes, Ben, we are expecting the Bomet Governor Isaac Ruto to lead other Pentagon members, including the NASA flag bearer Raila Odinga, also Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, among other leaders and also host of MPs from other regions. Remember, Nandi County, according to the IBC register, has 349,370 registered voters. And when we see to the last election, in 2013 election, we saw that the Jubilee government, that the residents of Nandi voted almost to a man for President Uhuru Kenyatta. But let's just bring in our senior political writer, Titus Stowe, who has been in this region for long. Just tell us the voting pattern. We saw that in 2007, Nandi residents voted almost to a man to Raila Amolo Odinga. What will happen this time round?
Well, NASA is making an inroad today to Nandi County. In 2013 elections, this region voted as a bloc and supported URP. It can also be remembered that in 2007, voters here voted to Raila Amolo Odinga on ODM ticket, and they voted as a bloc. So it will be based on how they'll sell their policies this time round, because as they make inroads, based on the candidature for elective positions here, a number of candidates chose Jubilee. So it will, okay, when we look at 202 general elections, residents here voted for KANU for local leaders, but for presidential they voted for former President Mwai Kibaki. Yes. So the kind of voting here will depend on how voters will.
Okay, so there are issues that we are waiting for the NASA Pentagon members to address. Remember, we have the tea estates, and you are told that the leases are about to expire. And also, residents are not aware. They want a clear guideline to know when these leases are going to expire. Those are some of the issues that we also expect that the NASA Pentagon member should address.
Well, this is a region that's rich in agriculture, and residents here are waiting, yearning for leaders who will address their issues, including dairy sector, tea sector, among others. So in Nandi, according to local residents, some leases are expiring in tea estates, and according to them, it's not yet clear on which companies are having their leases expired. So according to their demands, they want leaders to agitate so that they can have ownership of these estates once the leasehold expires.
Talking of tea estates, let's bring in one of the Nandi residents. Labda utuambie, najua kwamba kumekuwa na matatizo ya majani chai, na leo tunatarajia kwamba huenda Raila Odinga, Isaac Ruto, Musalia Mudavadi wataweza kufika hapa. Ni mambo gani hasa mnapenda yaweze kuangaziwa?
Hasa kwa majina naitwa Linus Kedi. Mimi nimekaa hapa kama miaka karibu 15. Na ukikuja kuangalia maisha ya hapa Kapsabet, maisha yamekuwa magumu. Juzi hivi kuna shida ambayo tulikuwa nayo Kapsimbeyo, mpaka hata majani chai ikachomwa. Wafanyikazi walitaka nyongeza ya mshahara, lakini ikaonekana kwamba kuna shida. Wakati wananchi wanapoleta shida ya kuongezewa pesa juu ya kazi yenye wanafanya, basi wanafutwa kazi. Kwa hivyo tunaonelea kwamba leo NASA wanapokuja hapa waongelee haya maneno, na tuone watu wa Nandi waonyeshwe haki yao, watakalia upande gani na watasaidiwa namna gani. Hayo ndio tunaomba tuone vile tutasaidika.
Ndio. Yes. Labda niweze pia kusikia kutoka kwako kama kijana barubaru. Unatarajia nini kama youth wa kaunti hii ya Nandi?
Mimi kama youth wa kaunti hii, kwa majina kwanza naitwa Jackson Omondi. Ningependelea serikali ione upande mmoja, kwa sababu unapata youth wengi wamesoma na wako madegree ziko hapo, hakuna kazi. Unapata wana engage kwa vitu vingine zenye sio za maana. Tunafaa sisi tusiangalie tribe ama whatever. Tuangalie tu kura, tuchukue kura, tuende we vote for NASA, ichukue uongozi. Hata tunaonelea hiyo mambo ya kupandisha vitu, tunaumia kama vijana, kwa sababu unaweza achwa na wazazi ukiwa na umri mdogo ujitegemee, na tuwezi. Sasa tungependelea serikali ya NASA ionelee hiyo mambo. Tunaomba watu wote tutoke, tujitokeze, tupige kura PBM.
Shukran sana. Ben, you've heard from section of Nandi residents, and we have told that there are perennial challenges affecting farmers, including the issues of tea and also some of the issues that are of infrastructure that have been affecting the locals here. But as you are waiting for the NASA flag bearer Raila Odinga to make his way any time from now, we are also keeping an eye on the voting bloc that we saw in 2013. Remember, like I told you before, in Nandi County, which is predominantly occupied by the Nandi subtribe, you also have the Luya community, you also have the Kikuyu community, among other communities in this region, Ben.
Many thanks, Elvis. Elvis Kosgei in Kapsabet in the county of Nandi, keeping an eye on things. We'll be coming to you there, of course, for the main proceedings of the political rally by the opposition alliance, National Super Alliance. So, gentlemen, we have heard from some of residents in Nandi. Before we take a look at NASA's plan in Nandi and in the Rift Valley in its entirety, let's talk about yesterday's rally in Western Kenya. Mutinda, Raila Odinga telling Jubilee to forget Western, that it's a purely opposition stronghold. Do you agree with that?
Not purely, because, I always want to go back to the figures of the last election, because it's
Yes.
the only reliable opinion poll we can use as at now. And the truth of the matter is that actually Raila got a majority of the Western vote. But this time he might get more, I want to admit, because you see, like, for instance, Vihiga County, that was the only county that Honorable Musalia Mudavadi emerged winner as a presidential candidate. But he was also, again, closely followed by Raila. And that means that this time, Vihiga County is entirely going to be on NASA. The only area I am really keen on watching is the Bungoma and Trans Nzoia part, and I'll explain to you why. Right. Because that is where we have the new Ford Kenya influence. There is a lot of new Ford Kenya in the former Kijana Wamalwa, currently CS Eugene Wamalwa. That is where he has...
Valley, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Trans Nzoia, actually Kitale is in Trans Nzoia. Then there is Bungoma. That's why I'm saying the two counties. Yes. That is where the current CS and the former New Ford Kenya party leader has got some influence. And most of that area in the last election voted two-way. There are those who voted for ODM, like I said. I think in Bungoma, for instance, Raila had 51%. Then there was ANC. ANC by then was not the party, but a coalition, a Amani National coalition, which was bringing together KANU, New Ford Kenya, and UDF, which was the flag bearer was Mudavadi. So in that area, between between Trans Nzoia and Bungoma, Musalia Mudavadi got more than 200,000. Actually, the truth of the matter is this, that the 400,000 he had was shared between Bungoma, Vihiga, Bungoma, and Trans Nzoia. That was where most of his votes came from. Of course, these other Busia and Kakamega, there were also pockets, but the bulk of Mudavadi's vote came from Vihiga, Bungoma, and Trans Nzoia. So the Bungoma Trans Nzoia vote had come courtesy of the new Ford Kenya. You need to remember that new Ford Kenya actually won the governorship of Bungoma. It was that serious. So we are waiting to see. We are waiting to see whether this time, now that the party leader CS or Amalo has endorsed Jubilee, will that also translate into the more than 200,000 votes coming to Jubilee? That is what I am very keen on.
All right.
Yes.
Interesting questions. Husband, what do you think? What do you see
I think I agree with him to a small extent, that the extent to which Eugene Wamalwa is now directly in Jubilee may mean that a few of the votes that Amani got courtesy of New Ford Kenya may go to Jubilee. But I think the biggest thing for Jubilee to worry right now is not the number of votes that Musalia got that will go to Raila. It's the reassuring effect that the campaign along the same platform among all these opposition politicians will do in as far as first consolidating the voter base, and secondly, drawing in from guys who never voted because they were not sure of what their vote was going to do, whether they voted for Raila or Musalia. They thought that they were on a losing end. So to that extent, you realize that Western is no longer an opposition zone. Western is consolidated in NASA. And that is a big thing for NASA. And from what I saw yesterday, there is this consciousness among Westerners that this time around they have all their eggs in one basket, and if they just draw themselves and vote, they're likely to ascend to power, of course, through ODM, and maybe later they can have, one of their own in power.
Is that what they call the Mulembe consciousness?
Yes, the Mulembe consciousness. And you see, there is this thing that power will come from the lake. You know, there is that realization right now, just like it was in 2007 when it slipped. And I think going forward, I'm seeing a situation where NASA is bringing in, you know, certain issues that affect the people. And with that consolidated platform that they all stand on, they are likely to have Western to the last man.
All right. Prof, 1.9 million is the total number of votes in the Western region. 700,000 in Kakamega, 500,000 in Bungoma, more than almost 300,000 in Busia, and close to 400,000 in Vihiga. There has been this issue of voter apathy, so-called voter apathy, that people in Western Kenya don't have the motivation to go out and vote. Do you think NASA will get the majority of their supporters to come out and vote? And how important is that going to be?
Thank you, Ben. I think that's a major political challenge for NASA. If you look at yesterday's meeting, there was one observation, it's a subtle observation, that there was a lot of energy in the meeting, on the platform and among the voters, which suggested that there is political harmony. The song they are singing is getting a response. Now, which is different from what you have seen in the past. Two, you get the feeling, I get the feeling that the choice of Buhungu as a venue was strategically very, very important. First of all, Kakamega has 700,000. If they can get 500,000 to turn out and vote, all right? And if you take that, you're talking about 70% turnout. It means that out of 1.9, if they aim for 85 and they get 80 or 75, they have mobilized a lot better than they have done in the past. Now, there is the issue that my colleague has raised about the Bungoma Trans-Nzoia issue.
Numbers.
Now, you know, when a person is a civil servant, is very different from when he's a politician. The sort of things Eugene Wamalwa can talk about now are not the sort of things he would talk about if he was as head of Newport, Kenya. For example, right now, if he goes out there and he attacks Mudavadi directly, all right, is seen as a lapdog. So what he must do is simply be singing the song of the achievements of Jubilee, rather than trying to say, don't vote for so-and-so. In the village, a lot of those people don't feel the project. You know, they feel the slogan that a particular politician brings forward. To complete, what I would like to say about Western is very simple. A lot is going to depend on the turnout. If you can get 75% plus one, all right, then that automatically neutralizes Jubilee in Kiambu and in Kirinyaga.
All right. So, Dismas, as you give us your thoughts on this, also, this gentleman has talked about Newport, Kenya, but also let's not forget Bungoma and Trans-Nzoia have also been the hotbed of Ford Kenya politics. Mm-hmm. Where does that stand in the mathematics of Western Kenya?
That's a complicated question that you ask. But observations from the meeting yesterday. Number one, for the first time you had Charity Ngilu coming out in the public domain and actually addressing a NASA meeting. So that's something that the opposition should be giving themselves a pat on the back on. Because Charity Ngilu, since NASA, has not come up in the open to endorse Mr. Raila Amolo Odinga. And her endorsement was covered in a lot of power keg. She said part of the reason why she left the Jubilee government, it was a land issue. And she accused the top leadership of failure to mismanage, or rather, failure to manage the land issue, which I think people interpreted in many ways. And if you go into the details, you may be sued for libel or slander. Then number two, there was Governor Akaranga, who's been sitting at the fence for the longest time possible. You saw him yesterday coming out and saying that I'm in NASA and Nandi. And he was even in Amani National Congress colors. The same thing I saw with Boni Kalwale, who was also in similar colors. And then talking about Boni Kalwale, he says that he had spoken to the good lords of the Mulembe nation, who told him that they must support Raila because in the next 5 years, the leadership is going to that community. And then the subtle messages which come out of that meeting, especially from Salem Davadi, is that they've got enough resources to take on Jubilee when they're campaigning in Western Kenya, that they're able to match a shilling for a shilling, that if Jubilee has got one chopper doing rounds, they'll be able to have another chopper doing rounds. If whatever projects they want to do, they'll be able to match the resources. Right. Now, when you go to the Jubilee appointment in Western Kenya, you have Ababu Namwamba. I'm not sure whether Ababu Namwamba can actually call a meeting at Bukungu Stadium today and have 1% of that crowd and address it to demonstrate his strength. And I'm not sure whether Eugene Wamalwa, the CS, whether or not he's a CS that is material. Because right now we know that anybody who is serving in the cabinet, understand now you can do politics as you so desire. I mean, there is no consequence for that. So I doubt whether CS Wamalwa today can actually call up a meeting at Bukungu Stadium and get that crowd and audience and give those powerful messages. Because, you know, we are told for the longest time that the Luyas will never be united, the so-called elusive Luya unity. But when you have Boni Kalwale on that podium, you have Musalia Mudavadi, then you have Moses Wetangula, all of them speaking in one language, saying that we are going to support Raila Odinga, and our support is going to be to the hilt. That's something you cannot take away. But now commending Western Kenya, you know, NASA is a coalition of so many political parties, and at this stage you have to commend Governor Oparanya and Boni Kalwale, because all of them said, we are going to vote for Raila as a presidential candidate, but when it comes to the gubernatorial position than anything else, we do not expect Raila Odinga to interfere. And there's a valid expectation that Raila Odinga is not going to campaign for Oparanya, that is not going to campaign for Boni Kalwale. And I think that's the message we should go through the entire nation if they expect to get any win.
All right, I want us to flip the coin because of time. We've talked about NASA. We'll come on and talk about NASA's expectations in Nandi today in the entire Rift Valley. But let's listen into the Jubilee team, of course, led by President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto, and they were in the Rift Valley in Nakuru specifically yesterday selling their agenda. Let's listen to what they had to say.
In a dramatic twist at State House Nakuru, the Jubilee leaders held lengthy negotiations from Friday evening with Kinudhi Mbugua and Lee Kinyanjui in attendance. It was at this forum where the incumbent made an announcement early Saturday morning. Kinudhi had opted to defend his seat as an independent candidate. However, our sources inside the meeting revealed that the entry of multiple candidates for the gubernatorial race, as well as Dr. Peter Koroso na Chama cha Mashinani ticket, is what made the leaders to force the former AP commandant to swallow humble pie.
Tuko na gavana wetu wa sasa, Mheshimiwa Kinudhi Mbugua. Pigeni makofi.
While at Salga, Rongai sub-county, the crowd's reaction towards Governor Mbugua forced the deputy president to intervene, a sign of his dwindling popularity. I want us to discuss one thing. We sat down with your leaders and we have decided that your governor, Kinudhi Mbugua, is going to step down in favor of Lee Kinyanjui. If this does not happen, we are going to allow our opponents to have more popularity and to win that seat.
Watu wa Nakuru, kuna watu hapa ambao wanaweza kushika na mtego ya kunasa watu. Hatiwale tunashindana na wao wameenda kutengeneza mtego. Kwa sababu hawana plani ya maendeleo, wakasema watatengeneza mtego atakuja kunasa watu wa Nakuru. Iko watu wa Nakuru ya kunasa. Na tuliwaambia iko shortage kubwa ya watu wajinga Kenya hii. Hakuna mtu atanaswa, watu wanataka maendeleo.
In Rongai, Kenyatta dismissed Chama cha Mashinani leader Isaac Ruto for protesting against the Itare Dam project, saying it was ironical that the Bomet governor was opposing the project, yet he has been championing for more funds and development at the county level. The deputy president further told of the National Super Alliance coalition for lacking any agenda for the nation.
Lakini unasikia mtu ameenda kule, anafanya demonstration. Isaac mtu ambaye tulisaidia ndio mtu ya kwanza kupiga nduru. akisema yeye ni mtu ya mashinani. Mashinani gani kama hujali hali ya wananchi wale ambao unataka kuongoza?
Tunaunganisha stima, wanasema mbona mnaweka kwa nyumba ya nyasi? Wanalalamika asubuhi na jioni, mchana na usiku.
The president later made stops at Olenguruone, Molo, Elbagon, Njoro, Keringet and Nakuru.
All right, Victor Ogale there reporting on Jubilee's rally in Nakuru. A lot happening there, including what we talked about earlier, the incoming governor, Kinodhi Mbugua, stepping down in support of Lee Kinyanjui for that Jubilee ticket for the gubernatorial position of Nakuru. Let me start this side this time. Dismas, what is your takeout from this, from the Jubilee campaigns in Nakuru?
Well, when you listen to the president and his deputy, they're trying to come up with the success story that they've done so much in terms of development, and they need to be voted back. But as Professor has indicated, there seems to be a shortage of energy, and the president is actually going the extra mile, even now speaking in his native language, so as to appeal to the emotions of the voters. So it's almost impossible to give a comment on what the president said, because if you don't understand the language, then you cannot interpret what he was saying. And I suspect that leaves the deputy president in a fairly uncomfortable position, unless he understands the language. Because if the president speaks in his mother tongue for maybe half an hour and is appealing to the core base, the Kikuyu community in Nakuru, that you must vote a Jubilee candidate.
Does that leave the deputy president in some awkward position?
Actually, when you say awkward, it's really an understatement of the year. It's a very uncomfortable position. It's as if you are lighting a fire on his face. Because you are here, the president is addressing the same voters, but he's using his mother tongue, and for about half an hour, you are not able to understand what he's talking about. But that goes back to the theories of political science, that if you're not able to use English to communicate or Swahili, then appeal to the emotions, speak to mother tongue. Because if say you're a Luo man, there are so many sayings or proverbs or idioms that you can use effectively to capture the imagination of your audience. And I suspect that's what the president was doing. And I recall, if you compare this to the 2007 election, it seems the case that if you keep on telling people that we've connected power, that we brought food from Mexico, and the other people are complaining, the message is becoming stale. I think they need to recalibrate a message and come up with a new message. Because if you keep on repeating to everybody every single day that we've got so many people connected to power, and chances are the people that you assisted to connect power are not able to load up to get credits or units, whatever it's called for, it doesn't add a lot of sense. And I recall 2007, when President Kibaki, when he was in his campaign, he used to tell people that have grown the economy up to 5.4%, and you should be happy. But the people were yawning, because people were saying, if the economy is growing, how come it's not reflected in my wallet? My disposable incomes have not increased, but the cost of living is very high. So it's even interesting right now when we are told of these achievements, but we have so many people, as we speak right now, facing foreclosure. People who used to work for the multinationals, who had taken a mortgage anchored on their salary, right now they're running around in small circles. People are getting depressed. You speak about the unga, which we were told that is available in the supermarkets. Right now, if you go to any supermarket and looking for that unga for 90 bob, you're not going to get it. A few days ago, I was in Machakos, and when I spoke to a number of voters, they said, we were expecting to get maize so that we can take it to the posho mill, so that we can guarantee our own quality, because we are not sure whatever they're mixing up. So there are so many issues, and I think Jubilee has got about 60 days to recalibrate the message.
Speaking of message, Prof, the messaging of Jubilee and NASA. Yesterday, during the same rally in Nakuru, the deputy president did accuse NASA of copy-pasting their own message, because NASA did speak about free secondary school education. That has been something that Jubilee did come up with first. What is your take is that okay? Who's doing what in their messaging?
In the political, it's almost a dustbin at the moment. In the political dustbin at the moment, it's very difficult to tell who originates what. In fact, if you want to go back, you go to Mwai Kibaki, free primary and later secondary school education was the message then. And instead of Jubilee, converting it into a reality, they have reconverted it into a message. In other words, it was pronounced by Kibaki, it was pronounced by Jubilee in the beginning. They have been unable to convert it into a reality. Now they have continued to, it's like retweeting. You tweet and then you retweet. Now, I want to go back to where Dismas was. Currently, from the point of view of communication, Jubilee is having serious problems with communication with the voter. You can see, for example, Uhuru normally speaks very good Kiswahili to the voter, and he can connect. Temperamentally, he's able to connect directly. But you can see he had a problem with it in Nyeri. He had to resort to Kikuyu to communicate.
The president didn't.
Just a moment.
Correct.
You know, what I'm saying is this.
He spoke English.
Of course, you speak English, you give your cronies to communicate in Kiluga, when in fact, you should be discouraging that. If we go back to Nakuru, there is a clear problem. The fact that the president appealed in his mother tongue to the Kikuyu vote on the ground, all right, was an invitation to Ruto, you talk to yours in your mother tongue. But Ruto didn't do it. What he did, he continued to convey the now stale message in Kiswahili. So the Jubilee needs to go back to the base, to the communication base, to try and reconstruct the platform.
Let me let Mutinda respond to that. What is your take on that issue of using mother tongue in some of
First,
these
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because it's been happening. We have also seen the opposition do that when they're in their local areas. You would not have expected Ruto to speak in his mother tongue in an area where his people are not the majority. We know who are the majority in Nakuru, and that is why it was in order for the president to do so. Yeah, if you don't know, you find out. Even the MPs can tell you who are the majority. For your information, all seats the president got in the last election, 80% of the votes. CORD got 17%. Of all the 10 parliamentary seats, only Nakuru West went to ODM, and actually that guy defected. Do you know why? Because it was because of the competition between URP and TNA in that constituency that he won. So that is a predominantly Jubilee. Figures don't lie. It is 80%. You can go back to the results and check. He got over 80% Jubilee. So even the issues of dividing vote, it's really not as serious as in Nairobi. If there is an issue where we need to talk to independents, it's not in Nakuru, it's in Nairobi, where Raila won by 49% and our president at 46%. You can see the margin. But there it is predominantly. I want to remind you, during Mark To's funeral, both the president and the deputy president were there. The deputy president at length spoke to his people in mother tongue. There's a reason why you do that. There is that level of bonding that comes with speaking with people in their mother tongue. And you're going to see Kalonzo do that in Cumberland. You're going to see Jacom do that in Luoland. Because this is the time to speak to your people in the best way possible to convince them. So that is really not the issue. And I am not trying to justify what happened in Nyeri. I just wanted to clarify to him that the president spoke in official languages in Nyeri, as much as we had other issues.
As we wind up, because of time, we have a lot to discuss and very little time. But since you mentioned Nyeri, there was an incident where the NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga was in attendance of the Madaraka Day national celebrations at the Kafiroini SK showground, and he was not acknowledged. That has been talked about by Kenyans a lot, especially on social media. He was not given. Obviously, it was a national celebration, and it has its own protocols and all that. But he was not acknowledged, and people thought, or NASA supporters have been thinking that. The Jubilee or the president ought to have acknowledged his presence. What is your take on this?
I think the Right Honorable Raila Odinga threw a bait, and apparently Jubilee decided to swallow it, hook, line, and sinker. Because from where I sit, I mean, you cannot not communicate. There's a principle that says that communication is, you cannot run away from communication. And Raila Odinga knew that the only thing I need to do is to show up. Whatever they do is a win-win for me. If they acknowledge me, it's a good thing for me. Because you remember in 2002, actually, Raila was celebrated in Nyeri more than any other foreigner has ever been celebrated in Nyeri when he went with President Kibaki. For the simple reason that he said Kibaki Tosh, and they were calling him Jamba. The other day I heard Moses Kuria say that he was young then, now he's old. He should not even be welcomed in Nyeri. But I think the unfortunate thing is this is a national celebration, and it was an opportunity for leaders who are contesting in the coming general election to show people that this is not a personal contest. This is a contest on how we are going to address national issues. So the fact that he was not even given, an opportunity to even wave to the crowd is a big dent on the credibility of the competitive nature of the Jubilee ticket.
What is your take on that issue?
Yeah, there are two issues that I would want to talk about concerning that particular incident.
Did Jubilee enhance Raila Odinga's popularity in that particular
that has
region?
been yes, of course. I want to agree with him on that. If I was the person who sat to decide on how to handle that, I would have insisted on him being acknowledged and getting a chance to wave. I don't know about speaking, and I want to say why I'm not very sure about whether he should have been given a chance to speak. First, this was a national event, a state event. And going by what has been happening in the past, I think it is only during the Grand Coalition government that we used to have the president, the deputy, and the prime minister speak in the official program. If you remember, during Moi's time, there was no room for opposition. During Kibaki's time, during his second term, also his first term, there was also no room for opposition to speak in such functions. I just want us to be objective so that we don't, unfairly condemn Jubilee. Then came the second term of Kibaki, where there was a grand coalition. Then the protocol, of course, changed because government was 50-50. So there used to be the prime minister, then the deputy, the vice president Kalonzo, then Kibaki. Now we came back to a government that is not a coalition government. And they've been doing their thing like it used to be done, that it is just a government function, and so there is official protocol, only that they factored in devolution. So the governors were brought in to at least introduce the deputy president in recognition of the devolved governments. But now the problem is that even having done that, in Nyeri, for instance, what happened in Nyeri was that the governor, unfortunately, because I don't want to talk about the people below him, but for him, because of his stature, he should have known that he has gotten a chance to host a national event. Unfortunately, he localized a national event. And I'm saying that as a Jubilee because it had a very bad effect on Jubilee politically. First, it made the rest of the country feel isolated. Because that was a national event. All of us were, including me who supports Jubilee. I was like, what's this? What's all this? Then secondly, during the last Mashujaa Day, I want to talk about whether Raila should have been given a chance to speak or not. During the last Mashujaa Day, one thing you have to give Jubilee is that they have demystified the presidency. They've made it not as, strict and tight like it used to be. During Mashujaa Day, it was in Machakos, if you remember. One of the things that happened is that Kalonzo Musyoka, unfortunately, for a person of his stature, went for that function late. That notwithstanding, the deputy president acknowledged him and gave him a chance to speak. I don't know whether you people remember what he spoke. It was not in tune with Mashujaa Day. He politicked. He even started giving the president those who have defected from Wiper to Jubilee and nimekupatia how. That was, he lacked a sense of, let me finish what I'm saying.
So
he lacked a sense, I want to explain to you, thank you, that's what I want to explain to you, that probably they had such concerns that last time we went out of our way to show courtesy, this guy abused it.
Fair enough.
He went political.
All right.
So probably that was the concern, but that does not mean they should not have, thank you very much, acknowledged his presence and given him a chance to win.
What's your take on this? Then I come to you, Professor. As we wind up.
Yeah, three burning issues. Ben. When you look at any National Day celebration, it's governed by Article 9 and Article 10 of our Constitution, which talks about national values. And Article 10 is very deliberate on inclusivity. So when you're having a National Day of an international nature, because everybody across the world was watching Kenya. Kenya now is a hotspot. Everybody wants to know what is happening in Kenya.
Right.
You cannot afford to have a governor, the way Kavemba has indicated, convert a National Day to a community event where he speaks his mother tongue. And this governor is an ambassador. So you begin to wonder, was this guy really, as an ambassador, representing Kenya's president abroad with that kind of language? What kind of language did he speak? He spoke in his mother tongue. And then you have entertainment with two MCs using the local language, which is unacceptable.
Was Ramadai maybe just looking out for his political interests?
Which was
he can do it, but he's not supposed to do it here.
Yeah.
Now, going back to Kavemba's logic, I find it a bit interesting. The fact that, say, Kalonzo went for the meeting late, and he did a bit of politics, So Jubilee now is nervous. They're irritated. They're not sure whether or not Raila would borrow from the same script. Then does this therefore mean, because Governor Wamathai, again, it was off the rails, does it mean that in future, if President Kenyatta retains power, and Jubilee is doing these the celebrations countrywide, that in future, no governor will be ever allowed to speak because Governor Wamathai spoke in his mother tongue? You know that the logic is upside down. Right. But when you go to the basics, and on social media, you know, the thing was hot. People were asking, is this now going to be a best practice that in future for National Day celebration, if it's going to Kisii and you're not a Kisii man, you need to have a Kisii close to you so that they can translate the proceedings from you. And I think the president actually, he needs to apologize to the entire nation. That was unacceptable. And assuming for a fact, or rather for a moment, that Ambassador Wamathai spoke of the script, the deputy president did not bother to correct that perception. And you recall, there were so many public servants there that I assume they're not necessarily from the Kikuyu nation. There were ambassadors, there was everybody there. Yeah. And they want to follow proceedings. The entire country is there. And they want to follow proceedings. Right. But they cannot understand this language. And it's for this reason that Raila Odinga needs to be given credit. Because according to reports, he was told to alight from his car and walk for miles on end, unlike the other VPs. Right. But he remained calm, cool, and collected. And at the end of the day, he probably got more coverage than the president's message. Because, you know, the president, people are waiting for the president's message. All right. But what does that action do? It doesn't get covered.
1 minute only because of time, Prof. At Jubilee, were they under any obligation to give Raila Odinga a chance, whether to speak or to acknowledge him?
They were not under any obligation, but there is a thing, it's called political decency. Political decency requires that even a guy you disagree with, when he is present, if I was Uhuru Kenyatta, I would have used that opportunity to ask Raila that, look, ndugu yangu mkubwa, you know, you are looking for this thing, but can't you see that I have really tried? So what, in other words, you should have used it to campaign, to try to convince Raila and his followers that I have done a good job, this man is my friend, but not to give them a blackout. Now, this thing refers specifically, Ben, to the communication mechanism, processes of Jubilee are out of sync completely because the messaging appears to be completely at odds with itself. If you look very carefully, that being a state function, the people responsible for making the president look good out there, even if I don't know if they are given the advice, but they completely failed.
All right.
So what I'm saying is this. I want to finish by saying that suggests that the Jubilee campaign approach at the moment is jumpy.
All right.
It's jumpy.
All right. We have to leave it there.
Allow me to make one point.
Yeah, please.
I'm Catholic, and I was equally disappointed that the head of the Catholic Church in Nyeri, the bishop, Archbishop Cairo, decided to read out the Jubilee Manifesto in a name of a prayer. I was there. I wanted to get spiritual nourishment, but what comes out, he was reading out the Jubilee Manifesto, which I found
I want to say this.
Yes,
I just want to say this, that I want to appeal to my party leader and deputy party leader, that as much as I understand, because I am a Jubilee supporter and strategist and supporter, now I want to advise and kindly request them that I know the importance of whipping the traditional support base. But I also understand the importance of ensuring that we have enough of the rest of the country. So I am kindly requesting that as we go forward, we have John Munyes, for instance, who should be probably Ken Lusaka. We need to have the face of Kenya in our campaigns so that the rest of the country doesn't feel like we are comfortable with the two main blocks.
But that's a confirmation that President Kenyatta watches
I think that is important for our victory.
Yes, indeed. That's why we leave it. We can talk a lot about this. There's so many things to say about this. But there's one thing I want us to talk about very quickly in the last 10 minutes. And that is the issue. We have been speaking about the issue of the gubernatorial races. Devolution is very important. Kenyans will be electing their next sets of the 47 governors. And there's this issue of the second in command, and that is the deputy governor or the running mates. And how important is this? I want us to just take a look at what are some of the things that gubernatorial candidates should look at to strengthen those tickets across all the 47 counties. But before we do that, very quickly, let's listen in to my colleague Francis Mtalaki speaking to the Mombasa deputy gubernatorial aspirant who has not spoken a lot on the media, that is Linda Shuma. Let's listen in.
To KTN News for the first time. Maybe you can begin by telling us who is Linda Shuma?
Linda Shuma is a Kenyan, resident of Mombasa, a mother, a sister, a community developer, passionate about empowering people in society to achieve all they can achieve and giving them opportunities to be able to do that.
And maybe looking at the candidates that were available by that time, 21 of them, you emerged the winner. What was the best criteria, maybe we would say, made you to emerge the winner?
I must say it came as a surprise even to myself to know that there were 21 candidates. And for me, knowing that there were 21 candidates is actually a very humbling experience. Long interview, of an hour and a half. I would like to know from Senator Hassan Omar and the panel that sat for the interview, because I did go through an interview process, what exactly they were looking at. But I would also like to speculate that they were looking at somebody that is developmental conscious, somebody who is transformational, because that is what I am. That is what Hassan Omar going for the gubernatorial seat is looking for, transformational. He's looking at providing transformational leadership. And I think for him that must have been key, to have somebody that he can work with the same type of mindset.
And maybe how long have you known him?
Wow. That is actually a very tricky question in terms of knowing him as a public figure. I have known him for a very long time because of the different positions he has held in public office at the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, amongst other offices he has held. At a personal level, about a month.
And maybe before now you decided to go for this position and apply for this position, what were the factors that made you think like, yes, I can be the running mate for Senator Hassan Omar, and these are the things that I want to achieve, given that he is one of the candidates. Why did you go for other candidates for that matter? Or decide to go by yourself?
I'll be honest with you that for me, the deciding factor was pretty much the history that the senator has laid before him or behind him. The fact that he is a champion for human rights is very key, because I am passionate about matters human rights as well. I believe very strongly that everyone has a right, everyone should be treated fairly, irrespective of our religious backgrounds, our economic status, or tribal affiliations.
And what were you doing?
Francis Mtalaki, they are speaking to Linda Shuma, the gubernatorial deputy governor aspirant. Of course, that is Hassan Omar's running mate in the battle for the Mombasa governor's seat. And let's very quickly, in the last 4 years or so, Kenyans have got a glimpse of what the relationship between a governor and a deputy governor is like, or it can be. We have seen a lot of those partnerships break up. We're seeing new ones, and of course, we're seeing new gubernatorial aspirants with different kinds of running mates. In your opinion, Mutinda, what are some of the things that you should look at when you're a gubernatorial candidate looking for a running mate? What should you look at? What should they bring to the table?
Yeah, there are several considerations when you're looking for a running mate. Let me start with the political considerations because first you've got to win the governorship. So you look at, like for instance, if you're coming from a certain area that is, if like for instance your county is divided into upper and lower regions, just for purposes of what I'm trying to say, and you come from the upper area, then for political reasons, it would be prudent to get a deputy from the lower area so that the county feels like it is well taken care of, it is well represented. That is the political. So that is, in short, you also look at the ability of the running mate to bring you extra votes. So like, for instance, in the case of the deputy governor candidate that we've just seen, the governor aspirant in that case is Hassan Omar, who's a Muslim. Linda Schumer clearly is a Christian. Besides that, she's also a woman. Those are aspects that might bring some vote that would ordinarily not have been very comfortable with Hassan Omar, probably for purposes of religion. So the Christians would feel like, okay, Schumer is there for us. The women would also feel like it is not a bull card. Yes. So the other one is also about complementing each other in terms of abilities. I want to come to my city, Nairobi. We have a Jubilee candidate called Mike Sonko. He's gone out of his way to actually look for a good corporate
technocrat,
yes, because he understands his weaknesses. So those are the two key considerations: the political ones and the operational.
I think I agree with him. That the first consideration is you're looking for somebody who's going to bring in votes. The second consideration is you're looking for somebody who's going to complement you in terms of the weaknesses that you have. They should be strong in those areas, and most importantly, because you're going to work with this person for a foreseeable future, you also need somebody who's going to be loyal to you. And of course, unbundle the key policies and manifesto items that you have into actionable, objectives and tangible things that will then reflect to the mass public. So you have to really consider that.
All right. Prof, is what they're saying making sense? Because or is a governor, let's say like Mike Sonko, going to be elected, for example, and then just shun Polycarp Igathe to the sidelines, as we have seen in many instances in this last 4 years?
Well, first of all, I would like to agree with the sentiments that they have expressed.
All right.
We run the risk of considering numbers, all right, that the person is bringing numbers. At the moment, look at what happened in Nyeri. Now, Madai was a deputy governor. All of a sudden, he found himself
on
governor.
The seat.
Now, clearly, he seems to have serious challenges in terms of political judgment. Now, I wanted to add to what they said, that in addition to getting numbers, what one needs to consider most is that this person have skills, first, to protect the governor when they are operating from the beatings from the county assembly. Can this person go out there, like Ruto does, go and fight the battles of the president? Can this person go there and fight on behalf of the governor effectively? Two, you need a person that is able to do complementary, as they said, to do the things the governor has problems doing. For example, in many ways, look at Sonko. He has chosen Igathe to be able to, Igathe in this case is not numbers, because the numbers that Igathe could bring are being brought by the president. So Igathe is not bringing numbers. He is expected to bring management competence, expertise to the ticket. Now, in practice, the boss is always the boss. Whether he can read, write, or not do any of these things, he's always the boss. So, although Igathe has been brought along, he runs the risk of being put in the dustbin on the first day, and other players.
Thank you for that, Prof. Dismas, what's your take?
The concept of having a running mate is to get somebody who can cure the deficiencies that the candidate doesn't have. We use Obama. When he was running for office, people said that he's a junior senator, he doesn't have foreign affairs experience. So he brought in Biden, who was more grounded, who was more solid. But the question is, did Obama give Biden the opportunity to advise him? He did. But would the Kenyan governors give the deputy governors the opportunity to do anything? No. Right now, if you ask anybody in Kenya whether they know, say, Deputy Governor for Nairobi, Jonathan Mweke, if you find him across the street in Nairobi, you will not even recognize him. Meaning that deputy governors in Kenya are merely flower girls, and most of them, they cannot wait for the boss to get impeached, or in the unlikely event of death, then they come up. That's why Ambassador Wamathai was probably selected, because the candidate then knew that I need to get somebody. Let's assume that he can bring numbers or he's got a very good IQ. But the governors, as it were, they don't want to bring a strong person to come over, because this strong person has got political ambitions. And in Kenya, I think we should now dwell with the position of a deputy governor, because it's really useless. I mean, how do you have a governor who at the flick of his fingers, they decide to lock out the deputy governor from office? Most of them do not have any responsibilities. So the only thing they do is to get a good salary, run around with a government vehicle, and engage in mischief. A good case is in Machakos. You've got a deputy governor for the last 4.5 years, 5 years, has been paid by the taxpayer for doing absolutely nothing. Outside organizing a few cases of drama to say that he's been frustrated from work, but he's been earning a salary for not doing anything. Maybe those are the people that the Anti-Corruption Commission is supposed to be looking at. Because you've been earning a salary for 4.5 years, 5.5 years.
Would you say
you've not done anything?
Would you say it's
no, but you see, now, I'm trying to
the CEO made it impossible.
No, but if you go to office on day one and the door has been locked, day two, why can't you resign? If you're a good politician who appreciates
it is not private. The governor should have known that this is an elected person. It is not his private property. The law is there to guide what should be done.
Did the deputy governor take him to court? Did he prosecute him? Did he go to the Senate? Did he go to the High Court? Because he
had all the rights to
doing
fight.
All these things.
He was elected.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the position of a deputy governor, really, it was created to ensure that in the unlikely event that the governor dies, we do not go for another election.
Right.
And in Kenya, unfortunately, we go for one election. But on the whole, that's a position we need to
One last
scrap.
point on that.
30 seconds
Yeah,
only,
I just want to explain why
seconds.
all deputy governors look ineffective. The first rule of power, for those who know the rules of power, is never outshine your
boss.
master. So how do you
That's how you
expect them
get
to
it wrong.
shine? It can't happen. It doesn't matter how good they are. The rules of power are against deputy governors shining. That is the nature of politics.
The next thing is,
you shine through your boss.
30
That's what
20
the rules of
seconds.
power say.
the best thing is, let us strengthen the position of deputy governor through legislation.
Thank you.
20 seconds.
That's what I would say. Let us strengthen that position through legislation, and if we cannot, let us scrap it and allow the governor to appoint whoever.
And finally,
Then I want to ask Kavemba a question.
No, you're answering my question. You're not asking.
Okay, is this suggesting that the deputy president Ruto has not read the 40 rules of power? Because clearly, he's outshining his boss.
He has
All
not.
right, all right,
That
all right.
is his opinion, and it is a wrong one. I don't think he has. Actually, the prof is the one who's right.
Thank
the deputy president has been very effective in defending his boss.
Thank you, gentlemen.
He doesn't need.
Prof is
Dismas
correct,
Mokua,
not business.
political risk analyst, governance expert, Professor Eri Tumbo, political analyst as Bonowila, and Jubilee strategist Mutinda Kavemba. A wonderful conversation. 2 hours is becoming shorter and shorter every time. We need more time. I'll speak to my bosses. Many thanks for joining us on Sunday edition here on KTN News. That's where we leave it on this week's discussions. Be sure to join us every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. to 12 noon as we discuss the big political stories in the run-up to the general election on the 8th of August. Remember, today, it is exactly 64 days to this year's general election. I'm Ben Kitili. Bye for now.